Before we get into this video, just want to let you guys know there might be some intense imagery that's not suitable for everyone to watch, so if you're not down for that, make sure you click off this video right now, and without further ado, let's get into it. No one could have possibly known Marvin was going to do this, but he destroyed nearly an entire town.
A bulldozer levels a building in Granby, Colorado. Then another. And another. It's part of a meticulously planned citywide demolition project.
The bulldozer went crazy.
But this plan wasn't put together by city engineers or construction workers.
Just received a 911 call reporting that there is an out-of-control bulldozer.
It's the brainchild of an angry man with a grudge against a lot of local people and businesses.
They can't tell who's driving it, but there is someone inside.
The man inside this...
So for some context, almost exactly 20 years ago, in the year of 2004, the first ever and only KILLDOZER was created by a man named Marvin John Heemeyer. During the KILLDOZER incident, Marvin outfitted a completely standard bulldozer with armored plates that he made himself, concrete and bulletproof plastic, which he used to destroy 13 buildings in Granby, Colorado. This totaled to around $7 million in damage, but how in the world does a reasonable man end up creating a homemade tank? So Marvin's story here started in the 1990s, specifically 1992, when he purchased a plot of land and placed a welding shop on top of this. In this welding shop, he would accept the locals' cars, he would fix their mufflers, and it wasn't anything crazy, didn't make a ton of money, however, it paid the bills and it got him by during this time. In the 1990s, he was also in the middle of negotiating a contract to sell a portion of this land to a concrete company, but they'd been having a really hard time because they couldn't really just find a price that was suitable for them. And during the entirety of the 90s, Marvin and this concrete company just could not come to terms. But eventually the city started pushing a little bit more because they wanted this concrete company to be established and build a plant, so they zoned a portion of property next to Marvin's welding shop for them to build their plant on. Now you might be thinking to yourself at this point, that's great. Marvin didn't have to get involved with this, and the concrete company has their property that they can finally build on. But this was really bad news for Marvin because this would remove the route that customers used to get to his shop, and it would also remove the route that Marvin himself used to get to the shop. Not good. Of course, this made Marvin absolutely furious, so he had to do something about it. Marvin, who was described by many as a logical, level-headed, and reasonable person, decided to petition against the city's decision and try to get a little bit of pushback here. Instead, the city declined him numerous times, and eventually in the year 2003, Marvin had had his fill, and he decided he was going to do something much more extreme. Marvin got to thinking and eventually decided that he was going to create a homemade tank. Years prior to all of this happening, Marvin had purchased a bulldozer that he was planning on creating an alternate route to the muffler shop with. However, this time he was going to use it for very different purposes. From early 2003 to mid-2004, Marvin spent a ton of time building what is now referred to as the KILLDOZER. He took solid pieces of steel, poured concrete in between this to make his own armor, and covered pretty much the entire surface of the KILLDOZER with it. He then also added a camera onto the outside because the KILLDOZER was so covered, that way he would be able to see what he was destroying. And it seems like Marvin was really thinking ahead because he considered the fact that somebody might shoot the camera so he wouldn't be able to see, so he covered the camera in a layer of 3-inch bulletproof plastic. Additionally, he added some gun ports for a 50 caliber, 22 caliber, and a 308. And of course, when you're going on a murderous rampage, you need to stay cool and be comfortable, so he added fans and an air conditioning unit inside of the bulldozer. Finally, the day had come. The KILLDOZER was complete, and on June 4th, 2004, Marvin hopped into the KILLDOZER, which would eventually end up being his final resting place. It was so well built that authorities, after inspecting it, realized they wouldn't have been able to get him out even if he had stopped and surrendered. Upon hopping into the KILLDOZER, he completely blasted through the side of his shop, went over to the concrete plant, destroying this, went over to the town hall, destroyed that, destroyed a judge's house, and in total destroyed 13 buildings. Every single one of these buildings was said to have had ties to some sort of legal issue he had during this zoning disagreement. And authorities that were responding to this rampage realized that anything they did had no impact on the KILLDOZER whatsoever. It was resistant to explosives that they had, as well as the small arms that they carried, so there really wasn't anything they could do but just watch in horror helplessly.
scene looked like moments ago. This is tape. This is when we first arrived on scene, and it looked like officers standing on a hill above this earth mover turned tank were firing some pretty heavy arms at him, trying to find a weak spot, trying to find some way to immobilize.
He does have armor-piercing weaponry.
Deputies and SWAT teams try everything. But even armor-piercing bullets can't penetrate Marv Heemeyer's homemade metal and concrete shield.
For a little over 2 hours, Marvin would ride around in the Killdozer, destroying anything in his path, while people were watching helplessly. And it got so bad that the governor decided to call the National Guard to bring in an Apache helicopter and an anti-tank missile. This is how well built it was. However, the Apache helicopter and anti-tank missile would never have the opportunity to show up because Marvin got his Killdozer stuck in the basement of a building.
Authorities seized the narrow opportunity, using the front loader truck to block the dozer in. The civilian operator hurries to safety. Forced to continue ahead, Heemeyer pushes his creation to the limit. The bulldozer grinds to a halt under the rubble of a steel building.
It was here where Marvin weighed out his options and realized that he wasn't going to be able to destroy anything else or get any more revenge, so he decided to take his life instead of facing any criminal penalties. In the aftermath, police opened up the Killdozer to discover Marvin's lifeless body.
As authorities try to get into the cab of his homemade tank, Marv Heemeyer takes his own life. It takes officers several hours and a cutting torch to finally get inside the cab.
And also traveled to his home where they found numerous documents detailing exactly what his motives were, and this of course being the land zoning disagreement. In his home, they discovered this ominous quote: "I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. Sometimes reasonable men have to do unreasonable things." And surprisingly, there are many different takes on this story. A lot of people actually think of Marvin as a hero for pushing back against a government that really doesn't care about local business, and on the other hand, many people do not like what Marvin did because he could have injured innocent people or even taken their lives. Fortunately, nobody lost their lives here in this situation. At the end of the day, whether or not you believe what Marvin did was the right thing, or if you agree with his frustration, is completely up to you, so I'll let you guys decide that, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, drop a comment, letting me know what you want to see next, subscribe and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss a video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out. What can I say, guys? This might just be one of the most disturbing cases I've ever covered. That being said, we're going to be going over some pretty explicit stuff here, so viewer discretion is advised, and without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the case that we're of course going to be talking about is the Hello Kitty murder case, which happened